So yeah, we'll see how we go. Thanks for jumping in, mate. Maybe come around this way a little bit. We'll get a bit more face. Yeah, that should be right there.
Yep.
Thanks for jumping on.
Pleasure. No problem.
Horse racing. My family does have a history in horse racing. Personally, I didn't sort of end up in horses as much as what Bailey, obviously my brother, did, but yeah, my old man and that. So it's a good chat. I'm interested to go through a few things. One of the ones I looked at was your time in the UK.
Yeah.
You went. It says you worked with the Queen's trainer, Lord Huntington, and Nicky Henderson, who was also another trainer. How did the UK stuff come about?
Well, funnily enough, my mum is quite heavily into yoga, and at the time, Peter Hayes was the main trainer of the Hayes dynasty, and he was also very interested in yoga, and they met, and it was through them that we got put in contact with William Huntington, and he was the Queen's trainer. So straight out of school, I remember Dad said to me, he said, if you're not going to go to uni, you need to go and get some more experience if you're interested in the horse game, and so I was 17 when I flew to England, and lobbed into the William Huntington stable, who was just happened to be the Queen's trainer. So it was very lucky. And I mean, Mum and Dad are both English, so I always had a desire to go to England. We'd sort of, I remember Dad getting me up to watch the English Grand National, and Lester Piggott, and all those sort of great stories of the heyday, I guess, of the racing in England. So I was always really keen to go there. Had some family there as well, and it was wonderful. Like, I spent a couple of years there, and it was just terrific. So
the Queen's trainer is a direct connection to the Queen. Is that the?
He had about, I think there was about 10 horses there that were owned by the Queen.
Yeah.
I looked after one of them, and I remember there was some stable lads there that had been there for years, and I remember we started having to trim the trees and sweep, and they sort of said to me, the Queen will be here in a day or two. They never really tell you, but. So we knew it was sort of coming, and I remember she was amazing. She came down the row of horses, and I had one of her horses that I was looking after, and she came into the box, and I sort of held the horse for her, and they tell you, you've got to call her ma'am and all that sort of thing. And I remember I forgot to take my hat off, and I was like, the trainer was behind the Queen, going like this, and I'm like, and he was like, get the hat off. But she didn't really care at all. She was really she ran. I remember. Found it quite amazing. She ran her hands down the horse's legs, and had a quick chat. She was very interested in them. It was obviously her passion, I think, horses. But that really surprised me. She was very small, tiny. quite tiny, but very hands on.
Yeah, they were race horses.
Race horses, yeah. I think the Queen mother at the time was she owned jumping horses, and the Queen. Just had flat horses. Yeah,
gotcha. We're here at the farm here, Wilde headquarters. It's a bloody good spot.
Yeah, we're very lucky. Mum and Dad bought this place years ago, and it was regarded as quite poor farmland. It's quite sandy. We're close to the beach, and as it's turned out, it was a masterstroke really by Dad, because it never gets wet. Perfect sort of horse country, and over time, we've been able to build a really good facility, from basically being hobbyists. Like, my father was a dentist, I should say. And, his hobby was training, and that's where I got my passion, because we only had 2 or 3 horses, and it was just on the weekend, I couldn't wait to come down here and help him. And, it was a real passion.
Yeah. So Bill, your father, Karen, your mother. So Bill has been in horses his whole life.
Yeah, they travelled from overseas, from England to here when they qualified. Mum was a physiotherapist, and Dad was a dentist, and they qualified, travelled to Australia. They'd answered a job in the paper in England to a place called Warrnambool. They had no idea, sort of where it was. So they just landed here, started working, and Dad couldn't believe the opportunity you could have in Australia, you know, with being able to get a license to train. Even they bought a paddock at Codrington, which is just past Port Fairy, and he travelled in every day. And he became friends with a farmer who trained a couple of horses next door, and that's how it sort of evolved.
Yeah. Is it different in the UK? Harder to get into?
I think it's more, you really need to be sort of born into it a bit more. You know, it's very hard to get an opportunity from scratch. So I think that's what he was so surprised about here.
Yeah, well, definitely, that's certainly a masterstroke. What's your, I guess, like your first memories around the horses from the early days, like from a kid, basically?
Yeah, from a kid, we had, in this area, you know, there were a lot of kids that rode up and down this road, and I used to meet up with them. We'd ride down to the Blue Hole. I mean, I just had the most wonderful upbringing, like being so free like that. And you know, I used to go hunting at the Boggy Creek Hunt Club. I mean, that's all folded now, but I remember, you know, going with my sister there. We just had and then the racehorses as well. And I knew early days I wasn't actually that passionate about racing as such. It was more horses. Like I dreamed of maybe, you know, being a horse breaker or, you know, working on movies or that side of the horse game. I was really interested in that more so than the racing. But racing, there's so much opportunity to make a living working with horses. So that's how, with Dad's interest, I sort of morphed that way. Yeah. But I would have been happy doing anything with horses. And racing just provides a better living.
Yeah. Warrnambool it's a pretty amazing place. I don't know if it gets maybe the kudos that it deserves. There's honestly there's so many things to do here, and the land is beautiful. The beaches, you've got the lot. Yeah.
Well, that was one thing about travelling when I left school. I worked at obviously in England, and I came home and I went to Lindsay Park in South Australia for a couple of years, and then home again, and then went to America. So I had a lot of experience. This was all working with racehorses, and you're right. I remember after travelling, coming back and thinking, God, this place is great, you know, and it made me realise just how great it is with like you say, the beaches. We're able to train horses on the beach, which is unusual, being the beach being, you know, basically in the town. You know, we can still work sort of with the public, and you know, they get a great insight into what we do, and they're always, in holiday times, people are always stopping us, asking us questions, and there's probably no other area where racehorses are trained so close to public, and the public can watch it. So it's a great place. And I mean, back 15 years ago, it was a thriving racing community here. You know, I think in the last few years it's started to die off, and I think there's a vision really to race closer around Melbourne, you know, with Racing Victoria have probably focused more on that, which is a shame because, as I said, this was an absolute thriving racing community, this whole district.
Yeah. Is you've had a good winner at Coleraine yesterday in the one of the hurdle there. That's a series, is it? That race?
No, I'm not sure it was part of a series, but we've had a lot of success at Coleraine. I think Coleraine hold one of the oldest steeplechase races in Australia still. You know, so there's a bit of history around Coleraine.
I just love the nostalgia of like it's a pity because the nostalgia of those old country courses, if there's a bit of loss of interest there, or maybe if Racing Victoria not necessarily putting the funds in.
I think that's the thing. I mean, those places haven't changed since I was a kid, and you know, a lot of people cut their teeth, and you know, within the industry in these places. You know, like trainers, jockeys, even owners, just getting a taste. You know, getting a horse trained cheaply in this area, and then they grow a business, and later on, you know, they're probably investing in a bigger way. But it was a really good grassroots start for people. This area, and it is. I think I mean, the people on that committee, you know, at these country clubs here, they do an amazing job. Like, they don't get a lot of money. It's all volunteer work pretty much. So it's amazing that they're keeping it going, and thank goodness they are.
Yeah, hopefully they're able to continue. You said you went to America as well. So UK, America.
Yeah, I went to America. I was in America for about 8 months and worked for a woman called Laura Desaru, who, she at the time, they ended up having the American Horse of the Year. It was a mare called a Zeri, and it was American Horse of the Year later on, but I was just fluked being there when it was there. She was only a small trainer, 30 or 40 horses, I think, and but yeah, they had an absolute gun mare, and so that was great. Well, I went to Chicago to the Breeders' Cup, and that was a great experience. I really enjoyed America. People give the Americans a bit of flack or whatever, but they were quite nice and quite.
The one thing I love about the Americans is they don't have the tall poppy syndrome, which I think is unfortunately not a great trait in Australia. But over there, they just support that. They want to see people do very well.
I agree that, and they introduce you to everyone. There was no, they took me everywhere. It was just, I had a wonderful experience. I'd love to go back there one day, but I could recommend America for sure.
Highly. How did you end up over there? What was the connection there?
That was another through William Huntington in England. He was able to place me there. He was friends with Laura and her husband, and so again it was just through connections, which was lucky that Mum and Peter Hayes did yoga originally, and that's how it all sort of happened.
I'm sure it's probably changed. What's the racing industry like over there compared to here?
It's probably not as mainstream, it was quite a thriving industry when I was there, but they had quarter horse racing as well. A lot of it was on dirt tracks.
Yeah, that's my, if I think of American racing for some reason, that's what I think of.
Yeah, well, they all trained on the one track where I was in California, and it was quite a basic training sort of method. There wasn't a lot to it. They had really good riders, and they had wonderful. They got a lot of staff from Mexico, who were, they were just amazing. Like they'd be looking after 3 horses each, and they'd bandage the legs, and so there wasn't a lot of it wasn't a varied routine, but they just kept it very simple, and it was interesting.
Yeah. So Bill was trainer. He had the original training license.
Yep.
And then did you go into co-trainer with him? That's how old were you when that sort of come about?
I think I was like late 20s when we joined up. I mean, Dad got into racing as a hobbyist, so he really enjoyed it. No pressure, and then when I came home after travelling, I tried to grow it a little bit and do it professionally, and then we got into a partnership, but it didn't suit Dad. If the hard phone calls to owners that are unhappy or whatever, he didn't really like that, and I understood because he was in it for fun, not as a business, and so after I don't know, we were together maybe 5 years in partnership. He sort of stepped away.
No, that makes sense. What going into failures or things that some learnings from early days in the training?
Yeah, well,
I'm sure there's many, and still would be many.
Oh, there is. I mean, it's a real training racehorses is not a science and it's not an art. It's just both, And so I always say to the younger ones that come here, like your brother and Liam and everyone, just observation is very important. You can't forget to be watching the horses and watching what they do, how they're eating, how they're moving. And it's quite underestimated. That is just observation, and you can pick up a lot doing that. There's a lot of, it's funny in this industry, there's a lot of gadgets that have come in, sort of heart rate monitors and, there's been lots of things that have come and gone, but I still think that's one of the, if you've got a team of horses and it's not too big, that under 100, I think you can really, observations are very important.
Yeah. It's a weird, not weird, it's a unique business because, I work in the accounting space. It's not I work in there because it pays me. It's not, wouldn't be my passion. Whereas the horse industry is, people don't, if you've got a business sense, you're not going to go and just start a horse training facility. You're effectively like a professional athlete in the sense of this is your passion, but you've also made a business of it.
Correct. Yeah, that's it. You're right. I mean, my father had exactly that. He was a dentist that he didn't particularly enjoy, and racing was his hobby. But yeah, well, I'm lucky that, you know, there's not many to, you know, I guess going to work, say, you know, over the May Carnival here, and you've got good chances, and you know, you think of it as work, but it's not really. It's competition. It's you know, it's an exciting. You know, and there's ups and downs. Like, you know, that. Yeah, you can have the lowest of lows and the highest of highs all within a month in this game. You know, it's so yeah, it is. It's a unique industry like that it sort of mixes sport, business, you know, a little bit of everything.
Do you enjoy clearly the horses are a passion. But as the owner of the business, I'm sure you're doing lots of non-horsey things in terms of finances and staffing and all that. Is that part, do you enjoy that part of like the actual business running, or is it just sort of part and parcel?
Oh, it's part and parcel. I like the team environment. Yeah. You know, we are a team here, you know, and everyone sort of has their roles. You know, Ashley Hoy's been amazing in the office. She really looks after that side of it, and she's very good at it. Yeah. And so I tend to try and leave her alone as much as I can, you know, with that. Yeah, and I think my strength is the horses. You know, I think that's where I try and focus most of my time. Yeah. But yeah, I like I said, I enjoy the team atmosphere around it. You know, there's good camaraderie with everyone, and you know, you're outdoors. You know, there's a lot of variety, and you know, no week's the same in the racing. You know, no. It's you just don't know what's coming. You know, and also that, you know, a lot of us are dreamers. You know, you've got that dream of finding the needle in a haystack one day. You know, You never know. The next horse, you know, you 2-year-old you get on, it's unraced. You think, oh, is this the one? You know, and so yeah, it's a very mixes a lot of those aspects of, you know, business, sport, team, environment. You know, and you know.
How do you go with your employment strat, like in terms of getting employees? It's obviously a focus on culture. Is that a big driver in the business?
Yeah, well, we try and keep, you know, again, reading horses to people's ability as far as, you know, we're very careful, you know, what riders we put on certain horses, and you've got to do that. You know, it is dangerous. You know, it's definitely dangerous if you're not aware of those things. We've tried to set the place up in that fashion, you know, to be as safe as we can. You can't obviously you know, it's difficult to avoid all accidents, but I think we keep it to a good minimum, and we do have a fair focus on that, and I think we're pretty good at that. And also the place we've established here, you know, we can start a bit later. I think that helps. Like it amazes me that the people that work in the industry, they get up early. It's not terrific pay, and you know, they're out in the elements, and they have got a real passion for horses, and that, you know, that never ceases to amaze me. Their passion and drive. So yeah, it's you know, they're really the backbone of the industry. Some of the people that work in these stables. Yeah,
it does fascinate me because you've got the standard business. You got your staff. You're dealing with staff, suppliers, finance, your customers, or the owners, and then you've got the horses as well, which is just, I know that's your bread and butter, but it really throws in such an unknown.
Oh yeah,
to every day, week.
That's right, and even trying to explain things that happen with horses to the people, the clients that maybe don't understand it, you know. And there's never been. We've found as technology's improved with videos, jockey reports, you know, the more information sometimes that people access, it actually makes it more difficult, you know. Yeah. I mean, I can't believe Dad trained in an era where there was only a landline, you know, and they had to ring him at night to find out the information. They just had to take him exactly on his word, you know. So yeah, that element's really been a big change, I think, and now, you know, clients expect a lot of that information, which they should, I guess, and being able to press a button and an email can go to everyone, you know.
Is AI creeping in at all to the horse?
That'll be really interesting, because I just don't know whether, you know, maybe data collection, but it's, like I said to you, it's an art as well as a science. So I don't know whether it'll really ever take over.
Yeah.
You know, there's certain things that I just don't think AI will be able to. They'll never be able to shoe a horse, or you know. But yeah, in actually getting data on horses, that might be an interesting space.
Yeah. How do you, from the business point of view, how do you, I guess, push that, get your staff, not necessarily AI, but obviously implementing technology? Is that yourself, Ash, or?
Oh, it's everyone, and also it's watching what everyone else is doing, you know.
Yeah.
The e-trackers were, you know, are sort of popular. I think they really help if you've got satellite stables. And again, I think here with this new facility we're able to watch the horses quite easily from up here.
Yeah.
So we don't feel like we need it as much. If we had a satellite stable, I think those e-trackers would be great. They give you, you know, distance, heart rate, all that. But we have tried a lot of it.
Yeah.
We just don't find it that useful just yet.
Yeah,
you know, I think as it advances, that technology, and becomes a bit easier to use, perhaps, and easier to read, I think it might, you know, come into play then. But
yeah, it's definitely one of the industries that will be last affected, I would have thought.
Yeah, Well, it'd be interesting if they got a betting AI that could tell you exactly who's going to win and who's not. But I don't think, you know, that'll never happen.
No, that's right. I just wanted to get like the Warrnambool and Jumps Racing Carnival, May Races. I've been out of here for a few years now, but it's like, and I'm not into the racing, but it's the one that I'll always just watch that week, and it's like it's such a big thing for this community, and I'm almost like get proud just watching it, because it's like you just literally see local people getting involved, and you see people on the TV that you know, and how much it means to everyone.
Yeah.
What's your how big's it been for the Wild stable?
Yeah, well, I mean, I grew up sort of watching all those, you know, great horses, and you know, I just thought it was the best week of the year when I was young. You know, I worked on the barriers, you know, I've been involved in all sort of aspects, and it really showcases grassroots racing, I think. You know, there's not a lot of emphasis on fashion or, you know, on dinners and lunches. It really is about the horses and the people. And I think, you know, it's one of the last really good country carnivals in Australia. You know, there are a couple that are still going quite strong. I think one in New South Wales, but, you know, really in Victoria, it's the last true country carnival. And I think the jumping just adds that point of difference, you know, and I've always said it, you don't have to be a hardened punter to watch a jumps race. You know, there's enough entertainment in a jumps race, I think. And for people that are involved with horses as well, like to see a rider that is really in sync with his horse jumping, you know, I think that's quite interesting for horse people to watch. And then, of course, you know, you've got all the other races for the people that just love a punt, you know, and are more interested in that side of it. So I think the May Carnival, there's something for everyone, you know, and as you say, the community comes together here, and you end up bumping into people that, you know, if you're from the area, you'll see most people throughout the 3 days, you know, people that just make the journey each year to come to May Carnival. So it's quite unique and special. Yeah.
The jump stuff, what do you reckon? Is that going to end? Do you think? I'm hopeful it's not. It won't. But the political side seems to me that it may be the case.
Yeah, I think it's a real shame.
Yeah, it is.
You know, the industry used to, through jumping, there'd be a lot of the jumps jockeys. You know, a lot of them broke in horses. A lot of them would be track riders. I remember, you know, a lot of farmers would have a horse in work, and it'd usually be a jumper, one or two jumpers in work, because they could compete, they could compete against the bigger stables. So it's a real shame. I think you're right. It is political. I think it's going to depend on what government gets in, and also it's just gradually sort of suffocating. We're getting less riders, less horses. It's a terrible shame. I think that unless something can really change in the next year or two, it's going to be pretty tough, I think, to see it going on into the future for the next 10, 15 years.
You wonder, I mean, of course there's the deaths, the falls and whatnot. But you wonder if it starts there, are they then onto the actual just flat racing next in terms of wanting to get that?
Yeah,
as well,
I think so. But I think that there's nothing wrong with looking at the industry. I've got 100%. No problems. I mean, we work with these animals, we care for them, and we don't, we want to get better. But I think the hysteria, sort of overtakes that.
100%.
So yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think it'll just be the next thing. I don't think those people have the same interest in getting better and welfare that we do. From our point of view, it'd be great if we could all sort of work together to get to the same outcome, which would be just the safest possible racing. And I think, unfortunately, with animals and horses, there's accidents do happen. It's just if you can keep them to an absolute minimum and not be flippant about it. I think that's the best you can do.
100%. I think people are just looking for a zero is their
which
is just not realistic. It's just life.
It is, yeah. I mean, you get it, and you'll continue to get it in paddocks or in other horse sports that are not so visual.
Yeah.
But like I said, it'd be nice if we could come together on that. And I think if that was the case, jumping would have a real chance.
Yeah.
But you do worry that if it does go, what's the next thing going to be?
What's your motivation as a trainer in terms of, you've got as we've said, a great setup here. But you're in the country, 3 hours away from Melbourne. Is there ever the desire or intention to go and have a big stable in the city, or you prefer to stay here? What is the motivation for you?
Yeah, it was interesting. Back when I was younger, and I did have those thoughts. Maybe I should go to Melbourne, and I had a few people actually tell me, you need to get to Melbourne to really, get into that next level. And it was funny at the time. I loved sort of playing football. I loved playing cricket, and I love the lifestyle here, and I just didn't go for that reason. And then later on, having had a family, again, I love living here and I want to bring up my kids here. And, so again, I just thought, I don't want to chase my dream to the detriment of maybe their sort of upbringing. So, and actually, as I've got older, I've lost the desire to train a big team and have, I think racing's gone into this sort of, they're encouraging the big factory stables.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's a good thing, for various reasons. So, I'm quite comfortable with our numbers. I think I can train. We have about 60 in work here and a few, obviously a few out in pre-training. We're pretty self-sufficient on this place as well. We've got everything we need, and I don't feel like I can do the numbers any bigger without starting to billet jobs out. So I think I can handle 60, and I'm quite comfortable and satisfied doing that.
Yeah, yeah. I guess the art and the science of it gets lost once you you spread yourself too thin once you get maybe above that number in the factory stables.
It does. It becomes just a factory line. Just put them through and see what ones. And I just that's not what I'm interested in now. Maybe when I was younger, perhaps I should have had a crack. But I'm actually quite comfortable with the setup we've got and what we've achieved.
Yeah. Is there a system or a process that you follow? When horses come in, how do you select a training regime for a horse? Is it based on the type of horse they are, or it's a bit of both, or?
Yeah, it depends on, a lot of it depends on where they're from. Some from the yearling sales, they're quite well developed, and they're handled a lot from a young age, and and then you get we get some owners that might breed their own horses that are, a little bit behind. So again, we try and tailor, the routine to the horse. We trying to not be the other way around. So it's a real just experience and the horse itself. It's like footballers and everything. You get very immature horses that blossom later on. You get other ones that are just ready to go right there and then. And it's to do with body shape, their attitude. You've got to try and pick everything and just to see if you can get the most out of them and just reading that a little bit.
Yeah. Is there a bucket list item, or like a Melbourne Cup or something like that that's on the?
Well, we've been lucky. We've nearly, I loved all those races at the May Carnival, and we've won every race other than the Galleywood.
Yep.
So I'd love to tick that box, and if we did that, we've won all the features at May, and we've won plenty of Group 2s, Group 3s, listed races, but we've never won a Group 1. So that'd be another thing I'd like to hopefully tick off, but I won't be losing any sleep over it if we don't. I think really a Group 1 horse is a Group 1 horse, whoever's got it. It just, a good handler might get, 3 or 4 Group 1s out of that horse. A bad handler might be 1 or 2. But I think it's pot luck a little bit, whether you can only do so much as far as conditioning wise. I think their ability is really what it is. So hopefully we might be lucky enough one day to get a Group 1. We had a few runners. Yeah. Like I said, I'd love to tick that Galleywood box.
Yeah. Back to the process of getting the horses in. How does a person get a horse to be trained with you? And do you take every horse that people come to you with, or do you sort of knock some back?
Yeah, we have started because we've got limited space. We can't take on everything. So we've got a racing manager now that will look at the form of the horse. We obviously give preference to people that have been with us a long time. We've had clients that have been dad's clients, and then obviously they get a bit of preference. Yeah. And then we also go out and source our own. We might I'll go to the sales, I'll buy a couple of horses just on spec. Yep. And then just hopefully I can ring around and get people interested to come and race them with me. So they come from everywhere. We've got a few owners that still breed as well. So that's basically how we do it. We've started buying the odd tried horse as well for a bit of a quicker turnaround. Like the yearlings, it's a long, drawn out sort of process with them. It can be nearly 18 months before they race. Whereas we've bought a few horses out of New Zealand, a few on the online sales. I quite enjoy doing that. It's we've had a little bit of luck doing it as well. So they're sourced from various.
Do you try and obviously if you've got 60 horses, you've got your best horse and then your 60th best. Do you obviously if there's more quality coming in, are you just pushing the bottom out, or?
Pretty much like a bit of a list management. If horses are earning prize money, they've obviously they go up the tree a little bit. It's basically like that list management and
start at the top. Yeah. Finances in the horse racing business. So how owners owners pay to have horses trained. You obviously win prize money.
Yep, we are on a percentage as trainers are take a percentage of the winnings, and we also have a daily rate. Yep. And then there's obviously add-ons like veterinary shoeing and all that sort of stuff. And I think training's become a lot more expensive. Over the years, and I worry that prize money's been very good in Victoria, but training costs have started to rise, and there's a little bit of an imbalance now. Training's so expensive, and prize money's come back a little bit. So it's a little bit of a concern because while prize money was so good, the cost creeping up didn't really affect anyone. But we're seeing a little bit of a shift in that at the moment.
Yeah. Is it volatile with the, like obviously the prize money is volatile. You can't bank on when you're going to win that, but obviously and the owners paying, there wouldn't be a high turnover of owners with the horses here.
Yeah, in general, I think in general there's been, that's one thing. Owners used to stick by a stable, through the good times or the bad or whatever. Now it's a revolving door.
Really?
Yeah, much more so.
Than what it was.
Yeah, for every new owner we get, another one. It's just
swapping over.
Seems like a revolving door. Yeah.
Yeah, well. Do they'll just cut ties and right, we're taking a horse to.
Sometimes they're just maybe to try their luck. They might be from, geographically we're at a little bit of a disadvantage. A lot of Melbourne people, it's just a little bit far for them to come and watch their horse, which we try and encourage, So that puts us at a little bit of a disadvantage. And some people have done that. They've said, we'd rather our horse just closer to Melbourne so we can watch it.
Yeah. How do you go with the planning of it? Like, you're obviously forecasting with budgets and whatnot with, so you know what's going to be coming in future months. Is that a big part of the business planning side of it all?
Well, we've got a hefty wage bill and the suppliers, feeding the horses, veterinaries, shoeing, but we've been fortunate that, our prize money just looks after that. We've been able to churn out a lot of winners with, probably not the best stock. We've been able to place them. And I think this place here, we've got a bit of an advantage having paddocks, a more natural environment. We seem to get, plenty out of the horses. We can get them quite fit. Yeah. So, we have relied on that heavily over the years is that percentage of prize money coming in. Yeah. So it sort of keeps you on your toes like that. You can't be complacent, If the horses aren't going well, you really need to say, right, is that horse just not good enough? Can it be fitter? Should we try it over more distance? That's
the skill of it.
Yeah.
How do you go about picking the races? Obviously, the horse has to be fit, needs to be trained to the right. There's so many moving parts with it all. Oh,
there is, and even tracks around this area. If you've got a horse that naturally breaks quickly from the barriers and settles in a forward position, there's tracks that around this area that can really suit that, especially if you draw well. And watching, being around here for so long, I can identify that. I think that horse would really suit going to Casterton or, so that's, just with experience, I guess, I've been able, I think I can get that quite right. But we have a team of people like, racing manager and obviously Liam, and there's a few people involved. Like we'll even at track work just make it, have a discussion about this horse might suit here, there, Yeah.
And then you just go through the process of picking them in.
Yeah, looking at the calendar, saying, right, there's a race 2 weeks away. Let's zero in on that.
How's you mentioned earlier, Bill didn't enjoy the conversations with the owners as much. I've got no intel, but I'm sure that would be a challenging part of the job, just liaising with owners on the daily, and they'd want to be having contact with you regularly, I would assume.
Well, that's one thing with technology advances is that, they're quite well informed now with, and I can do a voice recording that goes out to them all. Our racing manager does the same thing. They're really quite well informed. All the trials in Victoria are filmed, and we even film track work and the horses around here, swimming, beach, etc. So actually we don't get, a lot of contact in that way. If we find if they're well enough informed,
it's fine.
There's no real reason, to But going to, as I explained, like going to race meetings and everything now, owners are quite well informed, and sometimes it's a good thing, and then sometimes maybe it is, it isn't. But I think they expect it, and so they should. They're paying the money, and
Well, I'm sure that if it's not being provided by you, it'll be another trainer will
100%, yeah.
will be happy to do it.
Yeah.
They're going to get paid. So, there was I don't know if maybe you can speak to this. There was a horse that went through that tested positive to a drug, and it was you went through a big court process to. Was that off the back of, like, there was a few horses that come up around Victoria? Is that right?
Yeah, there's probably been a bit unlucky, and I don't know. I'm not sure.
Well, yeah. If you can't speak about it, it's fine.
Well, I know that Cirilio that case is finished, and yeah, I feel a little bit, unlucky and a little bit disgruntled because, it's looking more and more like it was is endogenous. Meaning the horse produced it naturally. It's been picked up by the it seems to be the one lab. And there's about 20 cases behind us that are still to come through, and it's frustrating. At the time, it was my best horse, and her earning capacity, she had to sit out a year in her prime. I'm an owner of her, as like a part owner as well, and like I said, she just won the Sunline. There was a group 2. She absolutely brained them in that, and so yeah, it was probably devalued her as a broodmare as well. She was a year older when we did happen to sell her. She made good money, but it was probably a lot less than what she would have made had she had that that 12 months of racing. So look, I felt a little bit disgruntled and frustrated, and but look, there is worse things that
100%.
that can happen. I mean, it's sometimes you just got to roll with the punches a bit. But at the time it was pretty frustrating.
I think it's just going through the process of. You've obviously gone through that process. I'm sure there was countless hours, sleepless bloody nights and whatnot.
Oh, just
financially.
Even I guess when you there's nothing untowards, and that's probably the hardest part, because anyway, it's hopefully all behind us.
I mean, that's if you're in the business, it's unfortunately some things just come up.
Yeah, when you hold a license, that's you're under the rules, so you just got to abide by them, really.
A few of who are a few of the favourite horses, probably the best horses you've had through the stable? Gold medals is clearly.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't the best horse,
No.
but he was an amazing horse because he raced for over a decade. To have that longevity for a start was incredible, and he won over $1 million in prize money, and he did it the tough way. Like he won his first ever start at Warrnambool as a 2-year-old, and his last ever start as a 2-year-old over 1,000 metres, and his last ever start he won the Grand Annual over 5,500. It's an incredible, $1 million. He won the Terang Cup. He won at Moonee Valley. He won hurdles. He won steeples. He was just like he was a real. Like looking back, and I remember at the time, you don't quite appreciate them at the time, but then since he's been retired, we look back and thought that was amazing. What a ride.
Yeah.
He was the first horse in 13 years, I think, to win the Briley Annual Double, and. He was. I actually dreamed of getting a horse like him when I was younger. I thought, I would love to have just a great steeplechaser, and he ended up being that horse. So I feel lucky to get him.
And he was just a gutsy horse. Just worked.
Oh, he was sound. He had the most incredible temperament. He never overexerted himself in track work or anywhere other than race day. And I think that helped his longevity.
Yep.
He was the most quietest horse to ride. So and he could conserve so well. And I think in the Grand Annual, he just jumped very economically. He just conserved his energy for that last, sort of 600, and that's what I think won him a couple of Grand Annuals, and he's got the best record in the Grand Annual in 150 years. He 4 runs in it for 2 seconds and 2 wins.
For the real horse purist, I think I'm sure he's a big favourite among them.
Yeah, well, his longevity sort of endeared him to people. He had some great battles with ZM, who was another great horse. So I think year after year they were coming back and competing, and you're in one camp or the other, and I think that's that longevity sort of endeared him to the public a little bit.
Yeah. Was there any other horses?
Well, Cirilio Miss was a very good horse. She was she was good. We've won the Sandown Guineas a couple of times with So Swift. He was a good horse. Ali Ball we ended up selling to Hong Kong. He made really good money over there.
What's the? I have heard, obviously through Bailey, like there's a few that you sell to Hong Kong. What's the? Clearly, it's probably a money, financial decision, but is there a real desire for them to get Australian horses, or
they just want good horses? They source them from all around the world, and they've got to go through a really stringent vetting. Yeah. But it's very lucrative. They've got a great system in Hong Kong, like a really watertight, good system, and it's always that can be, again, it's an unknown, but financially for all the work you do, it can be a really good reward. And it's tough because sometimes you'll get a horse you think, Jesus, this thing's but I know that bad luck, and you've got to have so much go right. Sometimes to cash in just helps. It helps sort of ease the pressure a little bit.
Yeah. They don't train over there, do they? Do they train yearlings or anything?
No, they
pretty much buy them in ready to race.
They buy them in ready to race from Europe, everywhere. Yeah.
With the jockeys, how does the jockey selection work for trainers? Do you have a selection, or is it owner choice, or a bit of both?
It's a bit of that. If we have riders that come and help us on gallop days or trial days, and we try to give them preference. If they're jockeys that are helping us, we give them first shot at it. Not sometimes due to weight or them riding somewhere else, it doesn't quite work. But as long as we give them first crack at the horse, that's usually how it works. And then you'll have owners that own majority of horses. They might have preference to certain riders. So that's a moving part a little bit too. But we have a rider here, Dean Parker, who has come from New Zealand, and because he's a jumps rider, and because the jumps is quite a specialty area, he rides all our horses, regardless. He does a lot of the schooling here and a lot of the education with them, and it's a bit of an advantage for us. So in that case, he rides all of ours. But flat wise, it's a bit of a mix.
Yeah. The actual a standard week for you from a training sense. Are you like Monday we're beach, Tuesday track, etc.?
Roughly. Mondays around, we work a lot of them at home. Tuesday's a fast day that's usually a gallop day. They have the grass open in Warrnambool, so we truck the horses in there. Wednesday's usually a beach day, a bit of recovery. Thursday track, Friday sort of beach in here, and so we have that rough guideline, but that again, we use the beach for recovery a lot. So depending on where the runners are, like we took everything that ran at Coleraine yesterday, all went down to the beach this morning for sort of recovery and waiting.
Yep. And what's they're doing, the horses are doing segments, or if when they're actually doing the running, how do you come up with all of that?
Well, we've got a board in there that gives their last 2 weeks, so we can look at that very quickly. And then it depends on where they're running, where they are in their preparation. If it's just maintenance, we might sort of back off them and trot and canter them at the beach, wade them. If they're in the build-up to a race, we often will sort of gallop them on grass, and then, getting close to a race, pair them up and make them sort of compete off each other to get that last little bit. So a lot of it depends on where they're at in their preparation.
Yep. I think that's all I've got for you, mate. Thanks for jumping on. I appreciate you.
No, well, I hope
your time out, mate.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure. It wasn't as bad as I thought.
Nah, it's good. Well, as I said, it's the everyone says to me, there'll be, I don't know what you're going to talk about, but there's plenty of everyday people just doing some pretty cool stuff. So yeah, it's good to have a chat.
No, thanks. Yeah, it was good.
Easy, mate. Cheers. Thank you. Unreal.